So it's a warm day, a very Sahara saturated day here in Sahara does saturated day here in Tobago, but it's all right.
The Optimist Show is about news, information, entertainment, and activism. Welcome to the Optimist Show podcast, and we want to welcome all of you wherever you are this time, and thank you very much for joining us as we continue to keep hope alive. The Optimist Show brings you the information as it is, and so we are glad to be with you today so that we can share together. Please like and share, subscribe to our channel, The Optimist Show, keeping hope alive.
Tossed and battered, bruised and knocked down, forever changed. But from the rubble, hope rises. The Optimist Show returns.
Welcome to Karaku, where traditions, culture, and connections meet. Conscious tours can provide an experience of a lifetime. Getting to know the people and their lifestyles. Visit historical sites. And the taste of a sumptuous local cooking. Enjoy the ride. With Conscious Tours, Karaku. Providing quality memories. Special and complete weekend packages for up to 7 people are available. For reservations, call 1-473-407-4597. Conscious Tours, Karaku.
Well, let me welcome our viewers again to yet another Optimist Show podcast. And as you know, we are reliable. Our information is accurate. And so we are happy to be able to present it to you in this podcast, our connection with our very good friend down in Trinidad and Tobago, in fact, in Tobago, Kandace. She has been on this podcast before, and just shortly after the elections there. And we thought it is necessary and important to update our listeners as to what's happening down to the south, to the southern part of where we are. Of course, we are in Karaku, and Tobago is to the south. So, Kandace, again, it's nice to have you on, and always glad to connect with you. Good day, and how are you doing?
Good afternoon to you and, of course, your viewers. Well, I'm doing all right. So it's a warm day, a very Sahara saturated day here in Sahara does saturated day here in Tobago, but it's all right.
Yes, it seems as though that the Sahara dust is having an effect on some of the Caribbean islands,
Yes.
especially Tobago, and here in Karaku as well. We have seen a few of that around. But however, it's not the first time it's been visiting us. It has been here with us a long time, and so we will deal with it, and
Yes.
of course, and with until it is over. So we're talking now Trinidad and Tobago. Well, Tobago and Trinidad. And what's your update like? I mean, last time we spoke about the government coming into office and setting the stage for what they want to do. Where have they gone as far as that is concerned?
All right. So it's been a month, just over a month since the new government took the oath of office and they've stepped in. They were able, was it 2 weeks ago, had the ceremonial opening of Parliament, but like a week later there was a holiday, and then they indicated also that they're preparing for the mid-year budget review, which would be held on the 16th of June, which is next week, Monday. So I am not sure yet if we'll have any parliamentary proceedings between now and then, but we haven't really had since the opening of Parliament. That aside, there's been a lot of, I guess, the work on the ground happening where the various ministers have been getting acquainted with what's going on in the country in the various ministries and so on. There's been some things that have been popping up. Now, I know a major one is the recent, what to say, conflict, if you want to call it that, between our country and Venezuela. That was sort of started by the president of Venezuela that drew some interesting attention and resulted in our prime minister issuing out some harsh statements and some very firm statements. But I know we're going to get into that. But other than that, we've had statements coming out or intentions being expressed that they are going to dismantle the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority, which was a new tax regime or a new body set up to handle the collection of taxes in Trinidad and Tobago, which would also include the reintroduction of property tax. Now, the previous government was able to start collection of property tax for the first time in about 15 years, thereabouts. Just at the end of last year and beginning of this year. And there were lots of complaints about how that process is. And as a result, this government is moving to remove it or reform it. Now, we will hear more about that. We have to wait till Parliament, to they speak in Parliament, because that would mean changes within the legislation and that sort of thing. So, but they have already expressed that intention. There's also the intention being expressed that they're going to scrap the demerit system, which is another system that was put into place over the last few years in our Motor Vehicles Act that said that if you have this many infraction and you accumulated this many demerits on your license, you're going to lose your license. And actually quite a lot of people in Trinidad and Tobago have lost their license. And of course, complaints about that system, and the government decided that a whole discussion as well as to the pros and cons of that, and there are issues within that in and of itself. Also, we had some strong statements coming out from the Prime Minister just last Thursday when it comes to the violence in schools. We had some situations where we've had some very, very violent fights breaking out. And so the Prime Minister is issuing some strong statements where she's saying that persons caught in those fights, they're going to face expulsion, and then they're going to figure out a place where these students can now go, because of course you can't just expel students and not have a place for them to go, because at the end of the day, if you just send them home without any access to education or anything like that, then that could create a greater social issue. So those are some of the other things coming out. Now, there was a lot of conversation about the state of the economy. The new government is saying that the treasury is basically empty, which means that they're going to have to get creative. And which is why next week, Monday, is going to be so important to see what the government is going to do about revenue and about expenditure, because there were a lot of promises made on the election campaign trail. At the top of them was things like giving the public servants an increase in their wages and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of questions as to how the government is going to raise all that money. And well, those questions would be answered on Monday during the mid-year budget review. So we're looking forward to that, to see what they come up with. So yeah, so that's basically what's been happening on the ground. It's still a little bit quiet. Yet, of course, crime continues to be a major problem within our country. Yeah, we await more action. So the ministers are getting their feet wet, they're getting acquainted with their various portfolios, and they're still meeting. There's of course, a changeover of the state boards that are also happening. So yeah,
Okay.
it's still in that new phase.
I guess it's a complete overhaul in some ways to have things the way they want it and based on their own vision and policy.
Of course.
Now, when you talk about some of these changes, I want to ask you specifically about Tobago. Now, how is the change affecting the people of Tobago? Of course, we know that there is a difference in so many things with those on the mainland, that's on Trinidad, and those on Tobago. How is the change affecting what impact it has on the people of Tobago?
Well, first of all, as you know, Tobago has 2 seats in the parliament that are not aligned to the UNC, which is the ruling party. All right. So for the first time in 25 years, thereabouts, we have 3 parties sitting in the House. So Tobago has 2 seats, and the Tobago seats have indicated their support for the Prime Minister. But that doesn't mean that they would be partial to every single thing that's going to be happening, right? So they've just stated their support. They're more, I wouldn't use the word aligned. I'll just stick with the word support, right? So they support Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar as Prime Minister and the general direction of the government, right? Of course, their role there has been or will be to advocate for what Tobago wants. Now, there was a meeting that took place last week between the THA and the Chief Secretary and the Prime Minister. And according to our Constitution, the Prime Minister and the Chief Secretary are supposed to meet every quarter to discuss Tobago's business. And coming out of that meeting, one of the major things was an agreement that the Chief Secretary will be allowed into cabinet meetings whenever Tobago's issues are being discussed. Now, this is the first time that that provision is allowed within the Constitution. And this is the first time in my memory that the Chief Secretary is being allowed into cabinet meetings on days when matters of Tobago are being discussed, right? So that is a win for Tobago. And a lot of people are just, supportive of that move. There was a commitment to work with Tobago. There was a commitment to deal with certain things within the Constitution or within the laws that create some friction between what the THA can do and the oversight that the government has. So, for instance, under the Tobago House of Assembly Act, there is control over education, for example, right? But the legislation governing education as a whole in Trinidad and Tobago only speaks to oversight of the Minister of Education. So in certain things like where teachers might need leave, their sick leave, extended leave, and things like that signed off on, that has to go to the Minister of Finance as it is right now, according to the law. And then, but Mrs. Persad-Bissessar said that actually all there needs to be is a simple change, because what happens is that a lot of this legislation predates the Tobago House of Assembly Act. The Tobago House of Assembly Act came into be in 1980. So a lot of the legislation, a lot of the laws that we're under right now are older than 1980 and does not recognize the Tobago House of Assembly in its, in its clauses. So where the Tobago House of Assembly has control, so they're moving towards in Parliament, hopefully later down, having those changes made so that the THA Act in its current form can really have the full power that the Constitution allows it to have. So hopefully that is clear enough. If not, you can always ask me. I could clear that up some more.
Okay,
so
it is clear. It is clear, and I do understand. I do follow. Yes. And there needs to be, from what I'm gathering, there needs to be that um, integration, the process of what's happening in Tobago, although the THA has its own act to operate by, it wants to work in harmony
Yes.
with central government, because at the end of the day, it's the people who would benefit. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So yes, I understand. I follow. Yes.
Right. And then, I mean, I know there are certain things like, for instance, people in Carriacou and even Petit Martinique, will disagree with some of the way things are done on the mainland and would want more authority to do things on their island. So it's kind of the same
Mhm.
thing that Tobago goes through. And over the past, I don't know, 30 years or more than that, actually, there have been a lot of talk about getting greater autonomy. So giving the Tobago House of Assembly more power, basically, the power, for instance, to enact certain laws specific to Tobago. And because things in Tobago are different from things in Trinidad, some things in Tobago are different from things in Trinidad, like in terms of like, be more focused on tourism and all those things. Just it's different. So we need
Mhm.
some power. And there's been a few attempts over the years to get
Mhm.
that sorted, but that has not worked. So this time around, the Prime Minister gave a commitment. So within the next parliamentary session, so our parliament goes on recess naturally in July every year, and then it comes back in September. So right now, the focus for the parliament is sorting out the um the finances. So this, excuse me, a focus on the media budget review, and there might be some larger issues, like I say, the revenue authority and those things that need to be dealt with. Once those things
Mhm.
are dealt with, and then into after the budget, because when they come back in September, the end of September, beginning of October, the national budget is due. So once that's passed, then they will give some attention to some of the things that Tobago wants. So that seems favorable, and a lot of people seem comforted by that. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's focus now on what we have been hearing, what been making headlines across the Caribbean, if not across the world. Did you say when you spoke about that a while ago? Did you say that the disagreement or the conflict started by Venezuela president?
Well, yes. So what happened was that last week, Wednesday, thereabouts, Tuesday, early last week, there was a statement from President Maduro from Venezuela, who stated that a Trinidadian, or we're not sure if it's one or two, because again, a lot of the information coming out is a little bit sketchy
Mhm.
and vague. And he said that Trinidadians were captured along with some Colombians with weapons, and with the intention of destabilizing the country. So, and he's basically sending out a message that he would not tolerate anybody trying to destabilize Venezuela or any sort of paramilitary intervention into that country and so on. So, there was some investigations from our side, and the Minister of Homeland Security said that he does not know what the president was talking about. He could not find any information on our end to support that nationals were going to Venezuela as part of any paramilitary group or anything like that to destabilize the government. And then, of course, we had Prime Minister Kamapasa Desasa on Thursday making a very firm stance that she would not allow Trinidad and Tobago to be bullied by anybody, especially a country like Venezuela. Um, and that, she's basically commanding that our Coast Guard and so on, you'd be on the alert for any retaliation or anything like that, if that is to happen. And then of course you had the um President Maduro again communicating and said, whoa, 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 okay, let's take it on a notch. let's deal with this through diplomatic means. So that, in a nutshell, is this little conflict. Now, there was a name thrown out. So on the second issuance from, there was a name thrown out of Gui Kendall Jerome, and but Minister Wayne Sturge, the Minister of Homeland Security, cannot confirm this person, because they're saying that this person who supposedly was captured in Venezuela has no criminal record, and they have no idea who this person is. So there's a lot of questions. We need more information, obviously. I mean, Venezuela needs to release that information, whatever information they have. They said that they have good information that it is somebody that was coming across. And the statement, it seems as the initial statement was said in a way that they were not sure if this was an attempt by the Tobago government to try to destabilize Venezuela. And but there's a lot more things to put into context about the situation right now between Tobago and Venezuela. So under the previous government, under Dr. Keith Rowley as Prime Minister for the past 10 years, they were working very closely with President Maduro out there in Venezuela to establish those gas deals to utilize gas from the Dragon gas fields, which is basically not far from Trinidad, and bring it in so we could raise some of our own energy revenue and that sort of thing. Now we initially got the licenses and everything to do that, but of course, in April, with the tariffs being put on by President Trump from the US, our license got revoked. And stepping into power, Kandace Jackson said that Dragon gas deal is dead. She's not going to go into it. Now, as a country, I know a lot of people were not necessarily so comfortable with this to begin with, even before President Trump and his tariffs and everything. And this, of course, has to do with the state of the economy of Venezuela, the volatile state of Venezuela. And so there were lots of questions, there was lots of disagreement on the ground. However, the previous government was convinced this was the way we needed to go, and they tried very hard to get there. Kamala Sasa, our current Prime Minister, previously stated, while she was in opposition, that she does not agree with Maduro as president. She thinks that, he was unduly elected. He tried to corrupt the process and whatnot. And she had issued statements about that in the past. So there is that sort of thing that's in the background. So we already know that our Prime Minister and Maduro don't necessarily see eye to eye, right? Mm-hmm. Not in the same way that Dr. Rowley and Maduro saw, well, I wouldn't say saw eye to eye, but had some level of a relationship. And so I'm not too sure if that has to do with the statements that was issued to begin with, and had to do with the way that our Prime Minister responded. So of course, this is all speculation here, and just sort of trying to get beneath the surface of there's a threat on Venezuela from a Trinidadian citizen. So, that's kind of the situation that we have right now. And
Okay, well, it's good to hear. And it's a very important update. It's something that lots of people have been following, and when you follow these Facebook pages, you can see the comments being made by people. But it's nice to hear with you being there to give us that update. Now, finally, let me ask you, how is the opposition who was in government some time ago? How are they coping now? Now that things have changed. What's your assessment like? How they are coping? How are they coping with this new role?
Well, of course, the opposition, first of all, they do not agree with a lot of the things that the current government and the signals coming from the current government, particularly the Venezuela issue. They wholeheartedly disagree with the way that Mrs. Pascal responded to Venezuela. And they called for more diplomatic ties and so on. And, as different things have been popping out, they've been responding, trying to defend their governance over the past 10 years and the way they handle things. Now, internally, the party, the PNM, the People's National Movement, they're not necessarily in a good space right now. They are preparing for elections later on this month. I think it's the 22nd? I think it's the 22nd. They have their own internal elections. However, their political leader has already been decided by default because Mrs. Penelope Beckles Robinson was the only candidate to put herself forward for political leader. So automatically, she is going to be political leader. It's just the rest of the positions in the party that's going to be up for grabs. No, she has tried before to lead the party and has been unsuccessful. And there are still a lot of people that do not agree. There's a lot of people also that are coming out and saying that they didn't agree with the previous leadership of the party for calling elections as early as they did, because the general elections technically could have been August, September, all the way up to November. I think November would have been the latest point that we could have had our general elections. So they was like the party was not ready. So they're blaming the previous leadership. They're saying also that the party has lost touch with the people on the ground and not really been listening to the membership. So you found that a lot of people did not come out and vote that would traditionally vote for the PNM because they were not happy with things that were happening within the party. So they're right now treated with their internal issues. It's a little bit shaky inside the party, but the PNM is a party that's been around for over 60 years and it has a very strong structure. So it's just they've been in this position before and they've come out again out of it continuing to be strong. So I don't see them weakening. I think that this is just going to be a process that they're going to go through. They're going to have their internal issues that they're going to battle it out, but they're going to get it together to come back again because traditionally, historically, that's what they've done.
Well, and that's politics in the Caribbean.
And that's politics in the Caribbean. So
yes. So Kandace, I really want to say thanks to you for keeping us updated and keeping us in touch with what's happening with our neighbor. I refer to Trinidad and Tobago as our neighbors. Yes. And we have to live as neighbors. And so what's happening anywhere around would also affect all of us, no matter where we are. I give you your final word, anything that you want to say. I don't know if you have by now established friends in these parts, so they may have been listening for you. So the final word is yours, and thank you again for sharing with us today.
I just want to say thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure being able to be on and to share a little bit of what's been happening in your neighboring islands. So yeah, I just want to thank you. That's all. And then of course, one day I'll be back in Carriacou.
Well, I do not want to reopen the conversation, but that what you have just said is something that definitely has to happen.
Oh yeah. No. I want to be back. Like I really loved it when I visited and so on, and it's just only a matter of time before I'm back. So
okay. All right. So thank you, and all the best to all the comrades down in Tobago and of course as well as on Trinidad.
Certainly.
Take care. All the best.
Take care.
It's estimated 1 in every 10 people in Grenada have the sickle cell trait. Having the trait does not mean you are sick or unhealthy. Very healthy people have the trait. Unfortunately, many of these people are unaware that they carry the trait. You see, when two people with the trait have a child, there is a 1 in 4 chance that the child will be born with the sickle cell disease. That is why it is important to know if you have the trait. Sickle cell is associated with life-threatening conditions, and it can be very painful. You see, the body's red cells can pass freely through the arteries and veins, but the sickle cells can get stuck, and this is what causes pain. This disease, you cannot catch it from someone. It is inherited. You are born with the trait or the full-blown disease. It comes from your parents. So let's talk sickle cell and what it is about and what can be learned about it and how to live with it. Let's all make better decisions about our family's health by learning the facts and getting tested. A message from the Sickle Cell Association of Grenada. Please call 458-6399 or email us at grenadasc@gmail.com.
Thank you for joining the Optimist Show. Please let us know what you think by leaving a comment and giving us a thumbs up and subscribing, and of course spreading the word. You can always rely on the Optimist Show to deliver accurate information, and guess what? I'll see you on the next show.